want you to know that like this didn't just happen. We had to make some choices. We had to give up things. I wanted to talk about the things that Bran and I gave up in order to do this like year of travel. It seems so glamorous and cool to travel for a long time. And I think that if you're seeing influencers who are getting, paid to do this, and you're seeing people travel and have all these exciting adventures and, be on the road full time, I think it can really feel like, wow, they have it all. They're, just living the dream life. It's so easy and there's no like sacrifices or something. But like that's not really true. We actually made a lot of sacrifices and made a lot of decisions that were hard in order to do this, in order to travel for more than like a couple of weeks, to hopefully travel for the entire year. Like that took sacrifice and some hard choices. And I wanted to talk about that because I think there's just this myth or this feeling that like anyone who's traveling for a long time, this is just a super easy thing and they're living their dream life and there's nothing that they had to do or give up in order to make it happen, because you don't typically see that when people are like posting about things on social media, or other YouTubers who are better than me who are showing you like cool travel destinations, because like those people, they're travel influencers. That's their job. My job is not being a travel influencer. I am a designer and I'm working remotely. Like that's how we're doing this. It wasn't like doing this was like a super convenient or like easy choice to make, like we had to give up things. We had to make big changes. We had to do some things that people might consider like risky or stupid, perhaps. Not naming any names, but not everyone thought this was a good idea. I guess what I wanted to start out with talking about is, like we had to move. We had to move out of San Francisco. We had to leave our beloved apartment. It was the first place that Bran and I like really lived together, and that, was special to us, of course. And, we loved our neighborhood. We had to leave friends, we had to leave community, we had to leave our routines. And, that is hard, like giving up the place that made us happy and the people that we love for a while is, not an easy choice. And hopefully we'll go back. But, like it's possible we'll never really regain that life again. The other part that kind of goes hand in hand with moving, we had to move out. We had to move all of our stuff in with someone else. We sold a lot of things. We got rid of a lot of things, and we moved everything into like a spare room in someone's place. And we like technically, like we moved in with them, like we live with other people. We're just not really there right now. We're paying them like a little bit, so we're almost paying them like a storage fee or something. So we're kind of like in some ways like never present roommates, except our stuff is there, which is a little annoying, but they were very cool about it. If we're back in the Bay for any reason, we don't have our own space, it's really like living with roommates again. It's not always ideal, but again, like this was a trade we wanted to make. Like we were willing to not have our own space for a while, to just have to like get rid of a lot of our stuff in order to do this, to be here right now. Along with the moving, Bran had to leave his job. Bran had a good job. They really liked him. He was doing well there. I can work remotely. Like that's something I've been doing for a long time, but Bran's job didn't fully allow him to do that. Like even if that was possible, he would have had to be up during the night, every night. That's how it would have worked if we were doing this right now and he was still working for them. So, that wasn't really going to work. Bran doesn't have full-time work anymore. He's been contracting a little bit, but he's not contracting full time. It's not like we're making, two full-time incomes right now. Like that's not happening. So we kind of had to get rid of like job stability and income stability in order to do this. That was another thing we had to like trade off. I'm sure with some people they go into it and they have two remote jobs, or they find a way to get a remote job quite quickly. That's great. That was not our situation. And we just had to like deal with the fact that, I'm going to be working, but my job isn't even like full time all the time. It fluctuates a lot. How much freelance work I'm getting can vary wildly week to week, month to month. How much money I'm making, it's all up in the air all the time. So we were going from like one unstable job and one stable job to two extremely unstable jobs. So yeah, we left behind stability, both in our residence and in our jobs and incomes. So the last thing that we had to do, that we had to give up, is really like consumer purchases and spending before this trip. So yeah, give up maybe like isn't the best way to put it. Saving is probably the way most people would talk about it, but within the context of like what we gave up for this trip, like we gave up a lot of like spending and buying things, and like instead of paying for something more expensive, we did cheaper things than we would have for a very long time before this trip began. And, I worked a lot. There were some years where I was working many, many jobs at the same time. Sometimes I had a full time job and a bunch of part time jobs. Um, the last couple of years, I've had anywhere from, you know, like 1 to 4 jobs at any given time. And those can fluctuate a lot. And working a lot, giving up my time that way, not buying things. There's a lot of stuff we said no to, trips we didn't go on, dinners we didn't have, like more expensive things that we didn't buy. I've been becoming like more and more of a minimalist and like a no buy year type of person over the past couple of years. And like those sacrifices, cutting back and being like really careful about what we buy and how long we use it for, that has really been a big part of the things that like we've given up. Like, ugh, I need more water. That wasn't enough water. But yeah, we had to sacrifice a lot of stuff, a lot of like consumer purchases. Our apartment that we lived in for 2 years was mostly full of furniture that we got for free. It was either stuff I had before, it's stuff that we found. Sometimes I found things on the street, which Bran hated. And we had a lot of friends who were sometimes getting rid of things that they gave to us. Almost everything in there was like not very nice. We made do with a lot of things that we got for cheap or free. And like, I'm a designer, I'm an aesthetic person. I certainly like having a nice apartment. It's not like I didn't want that, but I knew that investing my money into having the nicest couch or having a perfect dining room table or painting the walls or whatever, like, yes, our place could have been nicer, but we didn't spend that money, and now we get to spend it now. So we made a lot of choices to give up like buying stuff or having like a nicer place. It's not like we didn't do anything fun for like 2 years before this trip, but like, we had to save a lot. We had to save a lot and invest and, plan to not have a steady income for an entire year. That took a lot of time and work and giving up other things in order to do that. I'm not telling you to feel sorry for me, like, or anything like that. That's possible. That's how the tone is of this whole thing. That is not my intention. My intention is really to like, I don't know. I want you to know that like this didn't just happen. We had to make some choices. We had to give up things that we really liked, things that we wanted to do, things that we wanted to spend money on, people that we care about. We had to not do those things or leave them behind in order to do this. And we don't have any regrets. We're really happy about it. I've learned a lot about these other countries we've been into. I've learned a lot about myself. I think the trade is completely worth it. And I'm so excited for like all the other things we're going to do and experience. But like, we had to take on a lot of risk. We had to, leave some stability behind. We had to give up a lot of like material goods in order to do this. Those are the trades we made. And some people might not have to do that. Some people have more money than we do. That's cool. That's great. If you have a ton of money, wonderful. You probably won't have to make these calls, but we did not have those options. And I also know that like saving is hard, and I could talk about all of that, like, reasons why we could pull this off financially. I could go into more detail about that. I'm not going to, because it's probably going to be boring or annoying right now. But the point I'm trying to make is like, this trip didn't just happen. We had to do a lot of things and give up a lot of things and change big things in our lives in order to make it happen. And I want you to know that if like this is something you've thought about doing, you can do it. You can make those trades and like you can make those changes. And for the most part, a lot of those choices can be undone. If we went on this trip and we weren't really into it, we felt like we were spending too much money, we just wanted to be back in our old routine, we could leave and go home. Like, that's an option. We can undo all of this and go back. Some things are a little harder than others, but like, Fran could go find another full-time job again. Like, it might take a little bit of time, but it's all doable. A lot of these things can't be undone. I think there's this perception that like only people that are super, super wealthy or are fully retired or something can actually pull this off. And that's not true. You do have to make sacrifices and choices, but it can be done. If you're thinking about extended travel, you're thinking about changing your life in a major way, like, these are things you're probably going to have to do. You're going to have to make sacrifices. I think that making those sacrifices, taking a chance to like try something big and different for yourself is totally worth it. And we have found that to be true. I don't regret any of these things we've had to like give up and change, and I would do it again. But I want to make sure that it's not glamorous and easy the whole way. I hope this makes you think a little bit about your own life and changes you might want to make that maybe felt like too difficult, or like the thing you'd have to trade was like way too high or too impossible to give up. You can do it. And if you have a big thing that you're trying to change in your life or you're trying to travel, like, please let me know because I want to hear about it. Anyway, thanks for listening and hanging out with me, and I will check in with you tomorrow. Goodbye.